How did a woman, once told she couldn't fly combat aircraft, become the first to command a space shuttle? In this video, we'll delve into the incredible journey of a female pilot who, against all odds, earned her wings in a male-dominated military and later became the first woman to pilot a space shuttle. What motivated her to join the Air Force ROTC despite the barriers? By the end of this video, you'll uncover the challenges she faced, from being one of only 4 women selected for pilot training to leading a mission that deployed the Chandra X-ray Observatory. This is the inspiring story of Eileen Collins. While most young girls in the 1960s were told they could be teachers or nurses, Eileen Collins had other ideas. She wanted to fly. But there was one problem. NASA didn't accept female astronauts and the US military refused to let women fly combat aircraft. Yet by sheer force of will, Collins not only became a pilot but rewrote history as the first female commander of a space shuttle. Her journey wasn't just about breaking barriers, it was about smashing them at supersonic speed. The world wasn't ready for Eileen Collins, but she was ready for the world. Born on November 19, 1956 in Elmira, New York, she grew up watching aircraft at the local airport, dreaming of taking to the skies. But in the 1970s, military cockpits were closed to women. Determined to prove herself, Collins pursued mathematics, earning an associate degree from Corning Community College in 1976. She then transferred to Syracuse University, where she double-majored in mathematics and economics, subjects that required precision, logic, and the ability to calculate risks. That same year, she took a step most women wouldn't dare. She joined Syracuse's Air Force ROTC program, setting her sights on becoming a military pilot. But her road to the cockpit wasn't easy. The U.S. Air Force's undergraduate pilot training, UPT program, still had strict limits on female participation. In 1978, she was one of only 4 women selected for the program at Vance Air Force Base, Oklahoma. Outnumbered and scrutinized, Collins pushed through, earning her pilot wings in 1979. While her male counterparts were funneled into fighter jets, she was assigned as a T-38 Talon instructor pilot, becoming the first woman in history to hold that position. While the Pentagon barred women from flying combat missions, reality had other plans. Collins was reassigned to Travis Air Force Base, California, to fly the C-141 Starlifter, a massive transport aircraft with a 160-foot wingspan and a top speed of 567 miles per hour. She was sent on long-haul military missions, delivering supplies and personnel across Europe, Asia, and the Pacific. One of her regular runs was the Double Diego mission, a grueling route that covered Diego Garcia, Guam, Hawaii, Japan, the Philippines, and Alaska. Another was the Coral Run, supplying Kwajalein Atoll, Wake Island, Johnston Atoll, and Midway Atoll. In October 1983, despite official policies against women in combat, Collins found herself flying into the middle of a war zone. The U.S. invasion of Grenada required rapid troop deployment, and she was ordered to transport 82nd Airborne Division soldiers from Pope Air Force Base in North Carolina to Grenada. Not only did she deliver the troops, but she also evacuated 36 American medical students caught in the crossfire. The Air Force had no choice but to recognize her role. Collins received combat pay and was awarded the Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal. The Air Force still saw Collins as a transport pilot, but she had other plans. She needed to get into the USAF Test Pilot School at Edwards Air Force Base, the pipeline for astronauts. But the Air Force had 2 rules. First, a candidate must have at least 1 year of experience as an aircraft commander in an operational unit. And second, candidate must enter the program within their first 10 years of service. Collins had the flight hours but was told her experience didn't count because she flew a transport aircraft, not a fighter. Meanwhile, her 10-year service limit was rapidly approaching. Her first 2 applications were rejected. But in 1989, after persistent lobbying, she was granted an exception. At Edwards, Collins became the second woman ever to graduate from the USAF Test Pilot School, Class 89B. She was also the most senior officer in her class, a major leading a group of captains and lieutenants. Her training was intense, pushing her skills beyond anything she had done before. Over the next year, she flew a staggering number of aircraft, including F-16 Fighting Falcon, the backbone of the U.S. fighter fleet, F-4 Phantom II, a Vietnam-era workhorse; F-111 Aardvark, a supersonic bomber; A-7 Corsair II, a close air support jet; KC-135 Stratotanker, a massive aerial refueler; C-130 Hercules, the world's most versatile military transport; and even the Goodyear blimp, just because the Air Force had one. Graduating from Edwards was the golden ticket she needed. 1 year later, in 1990, NASA came calling. When Collins arrived at NASA in 1990, she was part of Astronaut Group 13, the first class to include both U.S. military and civilian pilots. She quickly proved herself and, in 1995, became the first woman to pilot a space shuttle. Her first mission, STS-63, was no ordinary flight. She piloted Discovery in a historic approach to the Russian space station Mir, testing procedures for future shuttle Mir dockings. It was the closest a U.S. spacecraft had ever come to a Russian one since the Cold War. Her second flight, STS-84 in 1997, saw her pilot the shuttle for a full docking with Mir, transferring supplies and crew. But her biggest test was still ahead. In early 1998, NASA made a decision so groundbreaking that it had to inform the White House before the public. Eileen Collins would be the first female commander of a U.S. spacecraft. First Lady Hillary Clinton personally announced the news on March 5, 1998, standing beside President Bill Clinton and NASA Administrator Daniel Goldin. Referencing Neil Armstrong's famous words, Hillary declared,
"Colonel Eileen Collins will take one big step forward for women and one giant leap for humanity."
The STS-93 mission in July 1999 was designed to deploy the Chandra X-ray Observatory, but the launch nearly ended in disaster. Just 5 seconds after liftoff, an engine malfunction almost forced an emergency abort. Collins held steady, commanding the crew through a dangerous ascent. The mission succeeded, and history had been made. After the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster in 2003, NASA grounded all shuttle flights. When the agency was ready to return, they needed a commander with nerves of steel. They chose Collins. She led STS-114 in July 2005, the first mission after Columbia. The focus was safety. Every possible scenario was tested. To ensure the shuttle wasn't damaged during launch, Collins performed a full 360-degree pitch maneuver, flipping the orbiter upside down so astronauts aboard the International Space Station, ISS, could photograph the shuttle's underbelly. It was the first time such a maneuver had ever been attempted in space. Collins retired from NASA in May 2006 and the U.S. Air Force in January 2005 as a colonel, but her impact on space exploration was far from over. The path she carved made it possible for more women to take command in space. Pamela Melroy followed in her footsteps, leading STS-120 and becoming the second woman to command a space shuttle. Peggy Whitson broke new ground as the first female commander of the International Space Station, later setting the record for the most time spent in space by a U.S. astronaut. In Europe, Samantha Cristoforetti continued the legacy, becoming the first woman to take command of the ISS. From being told women couldn't fly to commanding spacecraft, Collins didn't just break barriers, she obliterated them. And she did it all while making it look easy. What do you think is next for women in space? Let us know in the comments below. If you liked this video, check out our related video on From Flight Attendant to CEO, where we see how another woman changed her career and broke barriers in the airline industry.